Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you're good.
Are you ready? All set down here? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 7th meeting of the East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors. As we typically do, this is an in-person meeting, and it's also be available on Zoom. We ask that those people on Zoom be respectful and orderly in terms of their comments that they may want to make during the meeting. And as long as that happens, we'll have no problem. We do reserve the option of muting your microphone if you don't stay in line. Okay, all that said, I'd like to call the meeting to order with a moment of silence and a pledge of the allegiance. The pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mic down closer to you, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. The first item on the agenda for this evening is our zoning hearing for farm-based businesses and some changes that we're making in that ordinance. I'm going to go to Scott. Scott,
Give us a rundown,
a
just
little bit of an overview or rundown.
Sure. The farm-based business was to address an issue with an existing business within the township in order to allow them to operate and stay in compliance with the zoning ordinance. There was some updates that needed to be done to allow that operation to continue. I think all of you are familiar with that. The excuse me, let me look at the other one was.
The home-based business
Yes.
is now moved from a special exception to a permitted use. So that you will see a collection of criteria that will address things that the zoning hearing board had previously required during a special exception are now criteria as a permitted use. The recreational vehicles section addresses temporary storage and permanent storage. It also makes life easier in terms of removing the type 1 and type 2 class of recreational vehicle parking. The farm-based, you talked about that. Off-street parking, that addressed the setback in the right-of-way in the village zones.
Correct.
And then the on-site loading requirements. You have to help me out in that one. The last one was the effects of the zoning hearing board decisions, which addresses
Outdoor
timing.
storage.
Outdoor storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said on-site loading, but outdoors.
Yeah, again, most of these items were things that the zoning hearing board were dealing with that they felt could be rearranged or made by right. Again, the example is a home-based business. Someone can come in now by right and do that, but they set limits on hours and some of the other typical conditions that were put on to those operations.
So it's been properly advertised. It's been reviewed by the Planning Commission and Lancaster County Planning Commission, both of which had no issues. And it's before you for adoption consideration.
At this point, I'd ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to pose any questions concerning this ordinance and its adoption for this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I have an item to address. On page 5, section 13, number 4, storage or parking of any commercial truck upon any residentially zoned lot used principally for residential purposes or upon any public rights of way is permitted periods not to exceed 5 consecutive business days. I believe this needs to have further clarification and that could be Monday to Friday. It's moved for the weekend, it's back the next week, and it's there every week, Monday to Friday, if I'm reading this. So I don't think that's the intent of this, but if it is, then I guess I would understand that that's what we intend. But it seemed to me, and I know in other parking situations of mobile homes and some things, we were trying to have a 48-hour, if I remember correctly, time. And of course, someone could come out and move it. And then they've moved it a bit, so it's parked differently. I'm just wondering if there's some interpretation of this could go contrary to what we intend.
I think you make a good point. Is there any way we could tighten this up or do you think it's even necessary to tighten it up? Or is there a way to?
But at this point, to tighten it up would require us to probably start over.
What was the issue before? What did the language have before this at this point? Do we have anything related to commercial trucks and residential? Let me throw you in the spot, Mr.
Yeah.
Haney. Sorry about that.
Lizzie? Nate, could you help us out here possibly? Since you're the expert on the zoning.
I-
ordinance.
Yes, what's in the current zoning ordinance is the same exact language for commercial vehicle storage. We didn't change that.
The change is mostly focused around the the recreational vehicle.
Correct, yes.
So this is the way it reads currently.
So number 2 there, 20% of any parking lot and so on.
Yeah.
These events will be no longer than 5 days in duration and limited to 4 events per year. There's part of the limitation also. I mean, it can happen 4 times a year.
Yeah. But yeah, the issue that the zoning officer was having was trying to enforce the existing regulations related to recreational vehicles parked on personal property. They were inconsistent across the ordinance and were vague. So the changes really in here were meant to help allow for that enforcement. These other sections were not modified. If they don't deal with recreational vehicles and parking on residential property, it wouldn't have been modified. Is that correct, Nate?
That's correct.
Have we had any complaints about tractor trailers and residential at this point?
Not that
We've
I'm
only
aware.
had one over the last 2 years.
Because this would include a contractor parking a vehicle to work on their house for a couple of days too. That would be a commercial vehicle too.
Sure.
So you could have something like that. A moving van would be another example where it might be parked for multiple days on a location. So,
And again, this is in your ordinance right now.
right,
Right.
so.
Yeah, before we propose this change, it sits there today. We tried to address, based on the feedback that Nate got, the problems again with the recreational.
So the question I got, if we're done with that one, is the farm-based business, was that something that had required previously a special exception, or is that? Because the rest of them all kind of said is no longer a special exception. But for the farm-based business, it doesn't have that language in there. What was in there originally? That we're deleting that section and replacing with this.
Let me get that. I believe it specifically spoke to the yard waste composting facility.
Okay, so our compost site on Bowman Road would be legally compliant.
That was the focus of the changes to this section. We're just on the yard waste compost facility.
So farm-based didn't have a special exception requirement like all the rest of the home-based business impacts had. It sounds like that originally.
Do you recall that, Nate?
It did not, no.
Okay.
No.
Answer my questions.
Okay.
Apologize. This one's been on the books for a long time now, so I apologize. My memory's just a little rusty on this one.
No problem. Any additional comment from the audience? Any further comment from the board? Okay. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-12 containing zoning text amendments related to farm-based businesses, home-based business with impact, parking, and the effect of the zoning hearing board decisions and outdoor storage. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Russell, a second from Mr. Weaver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed are obviously 0. So that one goes down 4-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. The consent agenda itemizes general and routine business that we do here by the township. Generally requires little discussion. I'd ask the board if anyone has any questions.
None here.
None here.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve items A through F of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. LaFever and a second by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, that would be 3-0 on the approval, approved 3-0. All right, at this point, I'd like to make reference to an executive session that we had preceding this meeting. It began at 6 o'clock and ended at approximately 6:50 this evening. Discussed at this executive session was a legal issue as well as a personnel issue. Okay, next, the next action, next we'll need to deal with our action items for tonight. To begin, before we do the action items that are listed, I need to add 2 action items to the agenda. One being a public works wage adjustment and another being the interim appointment of a finance director. On the public wage adjustment, I'll provide a motion to authorize a $3 per hour market rate wage adjustment to the public works labor staff effective September the 5th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, if we could have a motion to add them to the agenda first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we add J and K as discussed to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFever, could I have a second on that?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Russell and a second by Mr. LaFever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right, now we're back on track. First item this evening has to do with the zoning text amendment to add daycare services, family and commercial to the village residential zone. All we're doing here this evening is acknowledging receipt of the petition, and we want to forward this to the Planning Commission for review and eventual advertising of the proposed ordinance. Any questions from the board?
None.
None. Any questions from the audience? Not seeing any. Any questions from Zoom?
Zoom is all staff this evening.
Say again.
Zoom is all staff and LNP this evening.
Oh, okay, good. All right, that said, I have a motion to accept receipt and authorize staff to forward the request to Planning Commission when appropriate, advertise the ordinance for consideration. That would be the zoning text amendment to add daycare services, family and commercial to the village residential zone. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Russell, second by Mr. LaFever. I'm sorry, thank you. Weaver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda would be a request by the Recreation Authority to move forward with the rezoning of the corner property of Church and Stony Battery from a recreation open space to community business center. Anyone here from the Recreation Authority that wants to talk to this? Speak.
Mr. Loonsberry is in the audience, but just to give you a brief history, the Recreation Authority had 2 public meetings the last few months to discuss this on their agenda. They did have representation from the residents. There were about 5 or 6 people represented with various forms of input. The authority then met this past month and decided to move it to the Board of Supervisors for consideration by the Board of Supervisors to rezone the corner property at Church and Stony Battery from Park and Recreation to community business for the purpose of seeking some sort of commercial revenue form for the golf course.
Development.
Yes,
And it's also my understanding that within the commercial business center zoning classification, recreation is allowed. Is that true?
I don't think,
no,
I don't
Nate?
think so. I would have to look.
you could have
I'm looking it up right now.
you could have a business such as a miniature golf or some sort of recreational business, which you couldn't have now.
If we rezone this, does it not allow for a convenience store?
It would allow for a convenience store. An office building.
I would prefer, if possible, to clarify how we are approving that. And of course, the zoning ordinance are what they are. So
There was a question raised at the authority meeting to that effect. How can you control what gets put there? How you control that is that the Board of Supervisors and the Recreation Authority have to sign off on the use.
and is that going to be made part of a motion here? That condition?
Well, it's not a condition, it's a right. We own the property.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, so, I mean, there would have to be something, even if, with the authority we make a recommendation to us what they like, but ultimately as a Board of Supervisors, we kind of have the veto.
That's correct.
Even
That's how the
even
authority-
after it's rezoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're not giving up our rights as to what can go there.
No.
We're just giving the authority of better tools to run the business.
My question comes up from the standpoint of let's say perhaps the Hempfield Recreation Center would want to expand over to that property. Would the CBC Business Center designation allow that to happen?
One of the allowed uses in the exhibit that's part of your packet, it lists permitted uses for the CBC and it says park and recreation facilities, public,
Okay,
community activity building. All the listed, the uses, convenience, mixed use building, vehicle fueling, professional, scientific and technical facilities, restaurant, retail sales, restaurant again, and then those park facilities.
so again, the new zoning classification would allow recreation.
It appears so, yes.
Yeah, okay, okay. Good. That's the only question I had. Any question from the audience?
What was the feedback from the Recreation Authority from the public meetings that they held?
From the authority,
And the authority held 2 public meetings. There was pretty extensive discussion about this. So what was some of their feedback?
from the residents.
And from the authority itself. So what?
The authority is fully supportive. They would like to have something that has that recreational component and complementary to the golf course. At the end of the day, that may not happen. They know that. The feedback from the residents that were present, primarily from the development to the east, was where they were from. They were concerned about the access point onto Stony Battery. They didn't feel that another convenience store was necessary. Some of the other comments. They thought that the use should be defined first before it's rezoned. We have had discussions amongst the authority and subject matter experts that you really need to have the zoning in place before you go out and market. And then we talked about the control that the authority and the Board of Supervisors need to authorize whatever gets put there. There was discussion about the movement of the maintenance shed, which is right smack in the middle of this parcel. And we have a picture of the parcel if you want to bring it up in the presentation folder. There was really not a whole consensus of the residents of what they wanted. They thought maybe an expanded wedding venue, maybe a mini golf, maybe ice cream shop. It all hinges on what a developer is going to come in to do, because the developer has to move the maintenance shed. They have to do the site work. So there's dollars involved, and what kind of business will support that.
I've often considered that tract actually a liability. It does look nice, but it needs to be maintained. And that is an expense. I would not like to see a convenience store or something that commercial, so to speak. Anything recreational oriented, I think we could welcome. And I believe we would have to change the zoning to attract someone, developer, or someone that has a desire for something special there. And it might actually be that what is there already with Four Seasons and Hark is an attraction that would attract another third use there that would be complementary. So I guess I would be inclined to support this.
Any comment from the audience?
He's got a comment at the front.
Could you come forward, please?
I just don't see that as a real reality.
Doctor, that was my question. And the answer was that the Board of Supervisors, being the owner of the tract, could control that. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but it's been zoned. You've opened the zoning.
I understand.
How could you turn them down?
Because we own the property.
That doesn't matter.
It does matter. We don't, we,
You open the zone and then you're gonna say, you can't build there. Then what happens, somebody else comes on and has a very similar product and say, oh, you can build it.
that's where the property owner, it's just like any other property owner that has his own property. They could do what they want and allow on there or not allow on there.
I just disagree with you. I think you're opening yourself to legal issues. Just with your waste of money.
I think it's, if someone owns a property and someone approaches them about developing it, then we can't stop it just because we don't like it. Because it's owned by someone else. But if we're the owners, we can decide to not sell it or whatever we choose.
We're not in a position to sell it. We have a commitment not to sell the land. We would be we'd be the landlord. And we certainly can pick who's going to be our tenants at this point.
Then maybe you should say about leasing them.
Right, we already have
We
a
are, yeah.
commitment in place with the township. We're not selling any part of the golf course. So there's anything that we're going to do here, it's going to be a landlord tenant relationship.
And I
At this point.
misunderstood that part, but.
Yeah, so there's no sale. We have complete control over what can go there. No,
That's correct.
we're not selling the property. We're leasing the property.
The new property you're talking,
Yeah,
that's not what you said. That's not what you can call it.
that's been prior discussions with the board. We're not selling any part of the golf course.
No, I'm talking about the new property.
What property is that?
The property we're talking about rezoning.
Which is what?
On the screen.
So
Yeah, it's the corner, right?
corner property.
Yeah.
But it won't be sold.
It's not,
not gonna be
there's
sold. It's not the
there's
new
not a
property.
subdivision of the property at this point. It's one property, two zonings on that piece of land. There is no intent to, we're not creating lot lines. We're not selling the property. It's one property, which is the golf course. One part of the golf course is zoned for the recreational. The corner now is zoned for the commercial. Just like we have blue collar that we're leasing the facility to for restaurant, we're going to be doing the same thing at this lower level, whatever the recreation authority comes back with recommendations.
Selling the property.
There's no sales. There's no sales involved with this.
Plausible so you can lease the property or something.
Right, we're making it plausible to lease it so they can have more business options on the site to generate more revenue for the golf course.
Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, so there's no, we control, that's a part, we control this whole process. We can say no to a potential tenant. It depends on what the authority comes back with.
Good questions, good comments. Anything else from the audience? Any more discussion from the board? Okay, then I'll put forth a motion to authorize staff to prepare a draft ordinance that will rezone the corner property of the Four Seasons Golf Course from recreation open space to community business center. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. LaFever. I have a motion from Mr. Russell, a second from Mr. LaFever. Could I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Next item on the agenda is a noise variance request for 821 Farmingdale Road on October the 1st, 2002, extending the time restriction from 9 PM to 11 PM, 2 hours. I believe this is for a wedding.
That's correct, Mr. Bennett, if I may.
Sure.
This request was received from relatives of the residents there at the Laxwama Farm, as you may be familiar with it, on Farmingdale Road, located halfway between Orville and Wickersham. They don't have any neighbors other than the woods and the walking paths, which of course are not or should not be occupied at night. And their request is simply to abide by our ordinance to be able to extend the DJ's use for their ceremony and reception until 11 PM.
With that distance, they must be planning a wing ding, but so be it.
I know the property and I know the owner and he does a good party. So, all right. Any more questions from the board?
Nope.
Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to grant a noise variance, which will extend the time restriction from 9 PM to or before 11 PM for a wedding reception to be held at 821 Farmingdale Road on October the 1st, 2002. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. LaFever. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Weaver. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is Stormwater Management Ordinance. Consideration of ordinance number 2022-13. I'm going to look to Mr. Hain.
Sure. What we did was we made the updates that were required for the 2022 MS4 compliance. It was basically some minor technical updates and some wording updates. that DEP puts forward as part of their template ordinance. The summary that's attached to your information sort of highlights the items that were updated. Nothing of any real significant substance in this one, but it does keep you in compliance. We need to sign a certification with the submission of the annual permit that the ordinance is updated. So with this, we'd be able to do that.
Do we have, for small lots, do we have like sample worksheets and stuff like that for a homeowner to put in?
Sure, for the small project type things,
For
yes.
like a front screen or
Yeah.
underground storage?
Yeah, and that hasn't changed. This deals with sort of stuff there up, really. The criteria for the small project are the same. I think on your board outside, there's a packet that sort of
That
highlights.
kind of walks a homeowner through the basics, so they don't have to hire an engineer to do a small project.
No, the idea would be that an engineer would not be involved in a small project application, and that has not changed with this at all.
I'll share with you, I just did the one for North Wales Borough. That was part of the Wissahickon Creek Association in the Philly area. And they actually have a pretty slick section for small projects for homeowners. Maybe just something to take a look at. for us.
Yeah, there was a template that the county engineers group developed that sort of focused on how to make that small project simple. And I think most of the municipalities adopted that and follow that same
Yeah.
model. And yours is along those same lines. Some give a little bit more credit for one thing or another, but yours is right there. And I haven't heard any complaints or issues about that from staff at all.
No,
No.
Nate pretty much walks residents through.
Yeah,
process.
that's what you want. You want to have very simple things to put together for that stuff.
Yep.
The kind of lessons learned from the earlier years.
Okay, any more comment from the board? Comment from the audience? Hearing none. Let's go with the motion to adopt ordinance 2022-13, an amendment to the Stormwater Management Ordinance. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Russell. Second
Second.
by Mr. Weaver. Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2023 minimum municipal obligation MMO for uniform to non-uniform pension plans. We'll shoot this over to Mrs. Schweitzer, I believe, and perhaps Mr. Russell as part of the finance committee.
I'm gonna punt this to Gina Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah, Gina Robinson.
All right, good.
Gina Johnson. She's coming to us all the way from Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
She's on vacation. So
You guys understand vacations.
we just need to be able to hear you.
No, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Oops. Mr. Robinson.
He's there in spirit.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Gina, we can't hear you?
No, we can't hear Gina. We can see her, but we can't hear her. So if you just want to run us through the MMO for 2023.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
Yes.
There we go. Yep.
We got you.
All right, I will go over this quickly then. This is for the 2023 MMO. We are using the actuary information from the 1/1/21 report, the valuation report. That will go then. There will be another one at 1/1/23. For the police pension, we're looking at $730,531. That's an increase. The change is only $10,060. For the defined benefit plan, that amount is $19,279, which is an increase of only $728. And then the non-union defined contribution plan, which is now at the 9%, is $108,646, and that's a change of $6,884. So that's pretty much the difference between the additional percentage and the increases in salaries. So the total MMO funding would be $858,456,000, and of that, the estimated state aid is $494,091. So the net cost to the township would be $364,365.
Does somebody want to go over what our funds are currently funded at percent level for the non-uniform employees?
Good question. I think the last time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the non-uniformed defined contributions at 112%. The police is at 88.
Nah, the police was a little higher. I don't have that with me.
92.
I think it was 92%.
92.
Yeah, it was the first time we've been above 90% in a long time.
And the DC plan, of course, is fully funded.
And we've held off making the $200,000 contribution that was in this year's budget as of yet.
There's been 50,000 of that done.
That's like, so we have 150,000 we haven't done yet, once we heard the
Correct.
the funding levels that we had with our two pension plans.
Right.
So that'll be something we'll be talking about during budget.
Correct.
And we're on the second year of the evaluation. We haven't had great success with the market these past couple of years, so it's going to change, but this is a good year.
Is there anything unexpected about the funding level? Or pretty much what you anticipated?
For this year, because we're using the valuation from 2021, which prior to that has been really good years. As Cindy said, in the next valuation, which is scheduled for January 1st of 2023, it's going to be it's going to be significantly different. Because like she said, we have not had, the last year and a half has not been so great, but using the 2021 valuation reports, it's as we expected.
Okay. A question to Mr. Russell and Mrs. Schweitzer. Since we've held off on the 150 of the 200,000, are we anticipating that we're going to use it, or that we would roll it into maybe next year?
We just had to spend it right now, we would have had to spend it by the end of the year. And so we figured we could just hit the pause button with the budget discussions and just see how numbers are looking. And we obviously have some other financial needs in the township right now that are going on too. So we just wanted to kind of have that flexibility. Once the police got above 90%, that the onus of playing catch up like we've been doing for the last 10 years kind of started going away. So we've been doing this for almost 10 years now. We've been putting in almost $2 million extra dollars into the police pension program at this point. So figured it just didn't hurt to hit the pause button and just go through the budget cycle and just see how numbers are looking right now.
And certainly for the last 10 years, it's been going pretty well because they're given the level of the funding for each of the categories. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, we basically brought them up from the low 70s. I think we were even below 70 at one point up to now 90 by doing the catch up.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the audience about our? Just up here.
Are these salaries set by the state or about 90 of what?
This means there's a calculation, it's an actuarial calculation that's done for our pensions. And so when we get our audits and everything that occur. And basically when we say like our non-uniform, which is our non-police pension plans, 112%, it means we have funded it actuarially to 112%. So if more than what's required at this point for its funding level. The police were at 93% funded. Anything above 90% is considered to be pretty much almost fully funded. So we've gone from being underfunded to fully funded at this point with our pension plans. Yeah, there's state regulations on how we handle our pensions for both our non-uniform employees and our police employees.
Any other questions from the audience? Anything additional from the board?
No.
Okay. Okay, at this point then, I'll put a motion out there to accept the 2023 minimum municipal obligation for uniform and non-uniform pension plans.
So move.
Do I have a second? Second from Mr. I have a motion from Mr. Russell and a second from Mr. LaFever. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. All right. Sticking with our discussions on pension plans, designation of a pension plan official for the uniform and non-uniform plans through nationwide. We are selecting, I believe, 2 representatives. Mrs. Schweitzer, do you have anything to add?
We're just updating the signatories for the pension plans, and we're adding, my name is currently on it, and we're adding Gina Johnson. Mr. Robinson has issued his retirement date, so he's coming off. So it's really just an update of signature
Okay.
titles.
Pretty routine, just a transfer, putting Gina on. All right, with that, any questions from the board?
No.
Any questions from the audience? Seeing none?
Gina Johnson's online. She is their staff accountant. The township,
Township.
yes. That would be the intent, yes.
We're gonna do that later. She's coming up. Be right with you. Okay, make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-24, establishing Gina Johnson and Cindy Schweitzer as the pension plan officials for the township pension plans. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. LaFever, second by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. 4-0. Motion carries. Next up for consideration is our software financial utility vendor. An authorization to sign a contract for the utility billing portion and resolution 2022-25 for supplemental budget appropriation. Mrs. Schweitzer.
So the finance department has done a great job of vetting various software programs, and they have provided you with a memo that recommends a provider. I will turn it over to Gina and let her just kind of briefly explain what they've done to achieve and get to this point.
Okay, the finance department as a whole has looked at 3 separate financial softwares, and we have narrowed it down to one that we feel will work best with our system. It actually is on the lower end of cost between the 3 of them. We've had the companies come to us, we've went out to different municipalities, and the one that we have chosen is called Cassell, and they are sold by a company called Dallas Data, and they are the ones that we will deal with primarily. So it's Dallas Data that we are entering the contract with, and then they will process the request. We will own the license for Cassell software systems. And what we need to have this done for is that we need to have the utility billing portion. Eventually, we would like to get the entire software package, but the utility billing software will need to be done this current year in order to have that completed by January 1st so that we can move forward with our billing for the first quarter of 2023 within the new software. We have had some significant issues in the past with Harris, which is the company that we currently use. And because of that, we would like to get this done as soon as possible. That is why we're not waiting until the new budget season for the utility billing portion of the financial software. We would like to do that as soon as possible. The cost then would be for the licenses is going to be $14,580. And for the setup and training through Dallas Data is going to be an estimate of $5,000. And then the conversion where they would bring our information in is roughly about $2,000. What we need to come up with immediately, we have to pay 100% of our license fee and then 50% of the training and the conversion. And then that will be billed out accordingly. Once we get past the 50% that we've paid, we will pay them on a rate that has been decided. It would be an hourly rate for the time that is spent, additional time that is needed for that. So the current payment would be $18,080, and then the total to get the software would be $21,580.
So the reason that we ventured down this road, our residents currently have very limited ability to do anything, any kind of payments online. This will expand that considerably, give them more options. It also will provide integration once we actually purchase the financial end of it, integration into terms of due tos and due froms, billing, everything will be kind of instantaneous. It would be allow the finance department to run more smoothly. And the last thing is that it would be cloud-based. So there's no need to have a maintenance concern about hardware.
One of the main issues that we see with this is that we can allow the customers to have different billing options. They can receive their bills electronically. They can receive them by text message. They can pay by text message. If they log in and create an account, they can do automatic payments, which none of that are we able to do currently. So it's going to be a considerably better option for all of the customers within the township.
I just had a question. I know everything's going to the cloud now, and I admit I don't entirely understand it and I don't entirely trust it. But I get the idea, but do we still have control over backups? If we ever wanted to go with a different vendor, is it their cloud and we have to ask for our data back? Or I know Google, Amazon, just about everyone has their own individual proprietary cloud. So do we know whose cloud it's going to be stored on?
It
Have there.
Sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead.
It will be stored with Cassell. They are the ones that will have the data. We will have that as long as we pay for the web hosting. So if we were to decide 5 years from now that we wanted to go through a different software, then we would just have to get that conversion done before we were to stop their web hosting services, because they would then be able to get all that data from their server for the conversion, but it is being hosted by Cassell.
Okay. Yeah, and we have backups of everything. I mean, can we operate if, say, the internet goes down for any kind of extended period, which is rare, but it does happen.
That would be a significant issue if it went down for an extended period of time. Since I've been there, we've only had, 5-10 minutes of internet interruption. But that would be, we would not be able to access that specific part of the software if there was no internet connection.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm satisfied. Thank you.
The 21,580 is a budget impact this year?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Pretty much that whole amount will be done because they will have that then ready for us for the first billing cycle of 2023.
And the way we bill, that's the largest billing cycle, the first one.
okay.
Will this increase our trash hauling rates for the township?
That is going to be discussed at budget time because we have had increases from La Suama. So that is going to have to be addressed during budget season as well. It will be slightly higher than what we're paying now, but it's not significantly more expensive for the annual fees.
Thank you.
I know I'm probably putting you on the spot. Do you have an idea of what we pay in trash fees to Luxwana?
Ooh. Gina might know that.
I want to say it's Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say to Laxwama, it's about 46,000. I want to say it comes to, off the top of my head, I don't even know if I want to give information just because I'm not certain.
That's fine. That's
So
fine.
their tipping fees went up pretty significantly.
Right.
so that's
I was
good.
gonna say
They
21
went up about $10 a ton.
21,000 in a scheme of, I mean, we're probably spending $500,000 or $600,000 in tipping fees and
Mhm.
trash
Absolutely.
fees.
In full disclosure, you'll probably be looking at a rate increase for trash because of those fees going up.
Right.
The fact that you're spending $21,000 or the equivalent for next year's maintenance is not going to cause in itself an increase.
Okay. Agreed. Any more discussion from the board? And from the audience? Your name, sir? Your name?
Just trash. Mhm. That's what Cassell calls the program, utility billing, because they also do water sewer, but we don't have water sewer. We don't have we don't have water and sewer utilities. That's being handled by the authority, Lancaster Area Sewer Authority and the Water Authority. We don't bill those. Some part is and the other part is city water, yes.
That's just trash.
We only bill trash, yes.
Okay, seeing no additional comment from the audience. I'll make a motion to authorize signature on the contract for Casal Dallas Data to supply a trash utility billing package which covers one-time costs in the amount of 21,580 to adopt resolution 2022-25, providing for a supplemental budget appropriation for the purchase. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Weaver, second from Mr. Russell. All those in favor? Opposed, there's 0. Okay. Next on the agenda is a PennDOT amended agreement for the Old Roorestown Road Bridge Project. Consideration of resolution number 2022-26. Mrs. Schweitzer.
So every time we do one of these agreements, we have to do a resolution attached to it to send to PennDOT. What this does is increases this project cost from $2,744,000 to $3,245,000, which reflects the bidding that was done most recently and awarded to J.D. Ekman. The township's portion of this will be about $86,000, which is 2.5% of the project. But we do hold the contract, and this is the authorization that increases this overall project cost to 3.2.
Okay, any question from the board?
It's the state we're in right now. The construction market's hot.
I got nothing.
And this particular increase is about 500,000. And our portion of it is
2.5% of that.
2.5% of that. So it's not a big number for the township. But it does get the project moving along, which is what we're after. Any questions from the audience? All right. At this point, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-26, authorizing chairman, vice chairman, or manager to sign documents related to the Old Roorestown Road Bridge Project. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Mr. Weaver. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed or 0? Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion concerning a commitment for a Roorestown Fire Company ladder truck. Commitment to support the purchase of a new ladder truck for delivery in 24 to 30 months. That'll be sometime in late 24 or early 25. Fire, chief fire officials here. Let's,
Yeah, this is essentially what this is going to be. This is kind of a planned replacement of their aerial truck. It's the current one is a 2007. It's 15 years old, and it's we've been seeing an increase in maintenance expenses. And the biggest thing with an aerial device is it's sent out annually for aerial testing by an independent third party. So we have to keep in mind with those repairs that if any of those repairs are significant, it may be out of service. The other concern with ordering and placing an order now is the build times. These vehicles are taking an inordinate amount of time to build. On the current contract, they're saying roughly 28 to 32 months before you would see it. The commitment tonight and the recommendation would be to actually do this as opposed to doing an upfront financing. This would be a cash on delivery. In other words, we wouldn't be paying for it in advance. We'd wait till the vehicle was actually built and delivered, which would be, again, approximately 2 to 2.5 years.
and the cost of that equipment is approximately,
The current cost right now, and that's one of the other reasons we want to kind of sign the contract and get the price locked in, is 1.89 million.
and that price, it would be available for how long?
Probably till the end of September. They're looking at most of the builders, most of the manufacturers are discussing increases that are coming as early as November. And most recently, I mean, we've seen the price of these vehicles go up, 21% in a short period of time. So it's something we want to try to lock it in, I guess, as soon as we possibly could.
Okay.
In our not too long ago separate budget meeting discussion, I don't recall addressing this forthcoming cost. Is my memory failing, or did we not talk about this?
Yeah, this was the one that was discussed. We discussed it actually as the next vehicle on the vehicle replacement list. So this was discussed for a while. We didn't have a price because we were going through the whole, discussing and looking at different manufacturers. So we couldn't really get it pinned down to an actual price until we could settle in on which were the final manufacturers. So they gave us actual final bids based on the specs, and then we looked it over. I think the highest was through Seagrave, and I think that was over 2 million. So this one actually came in less, but this was actually, like I said, this was our next planned replacement.
But in terms of your the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even longer now than that, no, we did not talk about this.
We did.
Did not.
We did not.
We did
No,
not. Well, that's what
No.
And if I might cite the Old Roorestown Bridge project that we just approved, and we're anticipating the Centerville Road bid in 8 days. We're going to go into 25 as we are projecting without our resources, our capital resources. I'm not sure how we can prevent what we need to do. I just think it's appropriate that we pause and consider how we're going to do it. And we have a budget meeting coming up the end of October. And I guess I'd like to suggest that we must bridge the gap to a tax increase that we would rather not do, but we must do what's necessary here in the township. So I want to rise that point in our thinking that we're ready to talk about that.
I somewhat of an agreement with Mr. Lefebvre on the fact that we haven't maybe vetted this out the way we normally would have. I'm not sure that we've even spoken about it in our public safety meetings, but that's another story. I don't think there's anyone here on the dais that wouldn't be supportive of this and moving ahead with this. In the interest of maybe looking at this again, and having some discussion between you and all the board members. Perhaps we could table this for until our next meeting, which would be the 21st. That would still give us time to lock in a price if necessary, if you don't mind. What is the board?
Yeah, I would like to talk about this in public safety next week, which
Okay.
would give us a chance to, and then
Okay.
we could take action at the next
Yeah, that'd
meeting.
be fine.
I'd like to kind of look at so we didn't really get to do this in the fire commission discussion so far. I'd like to look at the apparatus replacement plan and have your input as to what we're looking at for the next 10 years and stuff like that to get a better handle on what our costs are. We're sitting on that $200,000 a year we've been putting into the police pension. Maybe we need to start putting it into an apparatus funding plan or something like that too. So I think we just need to kind of look at ways that we're going to be funding this. And I think having the big picture discussion, which is what this is forcing now, would be a good idea.
I had that discussion with Mr. Robinson and Mr. Kottmeyer yesterday, and makes sense. We can have Gina work this into the 5-year plan, because I don't think that that's in there, to just see
Yeah.
what impact it has.
We know we have a lot of pieces coming, and obviously that would probably be one where we would look at financing or something for.
Yes.
That'd just be,
We
just
talked
get a good
about,
idea to get a better handle on what's coming our way.
we talked about building up the fire services fund and also financing once we get there.
And again, I think everyone here is fully supportive, but I think at this point, it makes sense just to hold off maybe till the next meeting. We'll just table this for now. That's okay.
Hmm.
Everyone agree?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from, a motion from Mr. Russell, a second from Mr. LaFever. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? 0. Okay. Very good. All right, now we'll pick up on the additional items that were added to the agenda. That being a Public Works wage adjustment. The motion will be to authorize a $3 per hour market rate wage adjustment to the Public Works labor staff effective September the 5th, 2022. Is there any discussion from the board? We reviewed this in our meeting before the meeting, or before this meeting. But any additional discussion from here?
Cindy, could you give the background on what kind of was the genesis for this?
So we have recently lost 3 public works staff resignations. 2 of those went to other municipalities, one went to a private, well, not a private entity, but another entity for higher wages. We then looked to see what the market is bearing right now, and we are significantly lower in the starting wage than what we should be to attract staffing. So that's what the $3 per hour puts us in good stead to attract new employees.
Okay,
I have no additional comments.
all right. Any comments from the audience about this action? Up here, please. We're talking about 9 Public Works employees that will, they're truck drivers, they're maintenance people, they're mechanics, they're everyday
They
guys,
do everything a contractor does.
everything a contractor does. They do everything a contractor would do.
Okay.
And that's our competition. We've gotten poached by,
They maintain the tennis courts, the pavilions.
The roads, they plow snow.
Right.
9 employees, 2,000 hours a year. Do the math.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to authorize a $3 per hour market rate wage adjustment to the Public Works labor staff effective Monday, September the 5th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. LaFever. Do I have a second?
okay, Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Weaver with the second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed, 0. Okay, and then the other action item that was added to our agenda this evening dealt with the motion to appoint Gina Johnson as the interim director of finance effective Monday, September the 5th, 2022. Again, this was an item on our meeting prior. Any additional comment from the board?
I'm looking forward to Gina stepping up to her new role, and I'm sad to hear about Mr. Robinson's pending retirement.
Mhm.
He's done a great service to the township.
We had the discussions amongst the admin finance and as well as the total board of supervisors that we need a succession plan for Mr. Robinson's eventually retirement. This is the plan. Gina has been with us since last year. She has a bachelor's degree in accounting. She has done very well for the township thus far, and this is warranted. She is now taking on the responsibilities of Mr. Robinson, stepping up to the plate.
And again, the financial success that the township has had over the last decade
Due
rests
to-
at the feet of Mr. Robinson, who's kind of been the captain of that ship.
Correct.
He's done an awesome job. Done a great job for the township, and we certainly will miss him. But we do welcome Gina, and we're confident she'll step in and maybe Joe's shoes will be a little bit bigger than her feet, but I'm sure she'll do a great job. Having said that, any comments from the audience?
Mr. Robinson is not retiring until the end of January of next year.
Oh, next.
Right. She is the interim finance director, yes. He is the finance director. Correct. They are both working here now. Correct.
She's also been with us quite some time.
Yeah. Been a what?
She's also been with us for quite some time. She's been training.
She was hired last year.
Any reason that, things can't, that are.
Dr. Hughes, if you could talk into the microphones. We have a reporter that, or a reporter and a stenographer. Thank you.
Get the agenda, and then it has about certain things that are in there that if you come into the office and you pay $10, you can get it, or $1 or something. We all have computers. Can't these things be put online?
Such as,
Well,
the ordinances are online
Well,
on the website.
they are.
Mhm.
Okay. Because then why do you have the thing about coming in and buying and looking at them?
For those that don't have computers.
All right, okay. Well, thank you. You've already done what I've asked.
okay, I believe that covers our action items for tonight.
We didn't do the motion.
Oh, we didn't,
Did we act upon it? I can't remember.
No, we did not.
we did not. Okay. Thanks, Scott. So with that, I'll make a motion to appoint Gina Johnson as the interim director of finance effective Monday, September the 5th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion from Mr. Russell, a second from Mr. LaFever. All those in favor? Aye. And no opposed. Now I believe we can move on to old business. Do we have any old business? Seeing none. Do we have any new business? Again, seeing no new business. Managers report. Mrs. Schweitzer.
So Centerville Road is in fact going to a let date of 9/15, which is next week. That's been confirmed. The plans are out on the street, ready for contractors to place their bids. Church Street paving,
Just for Centerville, could we again, once we have a confirmed contractor and a rough idea when the construction is going to start, get our boards up, just to kind of alert the public that hey, Centerville Road's coming
We
and
already have a plan for that.
so
Yes,
that we get that.
Diane and I have
get-
discussed it. Yep.
yeah,
There's a
that's-
lot of people that need to know. Yes.
Yeah, but get that board flashing and getting people aware and maybe move it around to a couple different points around the interchange.
Are you
to
talking the message board?
Message
That does
board.
not currently function. Perry's in the process of figuring out a replacement for it. The battery doesn't hold for more than 24 hours.
Okay.
We have a
So-
quote. It's actually going to be ordered.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
but we
that,
don't
I'm
have
talking
it at this
about the
time.
part that we control. PennDOT will do their announcements, but anything that we can
Mhm.
do to kind of elevate that with people, because most people don't get the PennDOT announcements at this point.
Right.
So just anything we can make people aware that after come November, their driving plans may be changing at this point, once the traffic control goes up.
Battery, heading towards, towards the east when you start working on Centerville. Because if you allow that turn on right, on the right, then nobody will you'll fill up that lane going up, Marietta towards Centerville, and nobody will be able to turn off the Stony Battery in the opposite direction, turning left.
Well, the state will make that.
Maybe somebody should suggest.
Well, we'll suggest it at the right time. I mean, I think staff is on top of this. You make a good suggestion. We'll see where it goes. Thank you. Anything else? Any on Centerville Road?
I'm just excited that after
I was
15 years,
surprised.
we're actually breaking ground on this.
Yes.
And it'll make the state road interchange look like a small project when it's all said and done.
And we likely won't see any movement until probably spring of next year. I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
they'll put probably, again, it's gonna depend on how fast the contractor wants to move. Right now, contractors are so busy that if there's not snow on the ground, they're doing work. So we'll see what they may or may not do, but I'm not anticipating there's gonna be too many winter layoffs for contractors this year.
So the old Roorestown Road Bridge, we're still working on background documents that has been awarded. That's the action you took tonight. And as we're being told, the roadway will remain open. That's a dead end street on Dairy. Diane has been reaching out to the business owners on that road so that they are fully informed, just like we're going to do for Centerville. Farmingdale Road project also is going to bid finally on the 16th. It should be a bid opening, and then it should be on your agenda on the 9/21 agenda for award of the contract. Nothing new to report on Stony Battery Trail. The pickleball court resurfacing, the project has received the blacktop overlay and we're waiting for the color coding. The Pickleball League has inquired if they could put permanent nets and posts on. That would need to be a board action, which will be on your 9/21 agenda. And that will be at their cost. The McFarland Drive Basin that received the first treatment of a mowing. The next thing will be application of some herbicide to address the invasive plant that's in there. School Lane Alley in Roorestown, those letters to the residents have been sent. That's going to be on the Traffic Commission September and October agenda for possible closure of School Lane because of traffic issues. In addition to what I've just said, the campus fence, according to Perry, is in and should be installed probably in 2 or 3 weeks. So that's moving along. Also a positive, the Noldor Park project that we had submitted a DCNR grant for was awarded to us for $280,000. That's 50% of the cost. That's a 2-phase project. I think the DCNR grant is a 3 or 4-year spend. So that's going to be across a couple of budgets. The second half of the ARPA funds will arrive Friday into our accounts. That's 1.2 million roughly. And we received the $175,000 grant for the temporary signals at Route 72 and Lidditz Road. So our engineer is currently working on that design work. Group reports, we have an admin finance meeting to review the issues we discussed tonight. We also had a public safety meeting with East Pete Fire Company, where we reviewed some recent agreements they have between the borough and the fire company. Both sides of that meeting walked away with a better understanding of the fire company's direction and validation so that East Hempfield Township can continue to support the fire company. I attended a few meetings with golf staff to talk about the basins that are going to be put next to hole 14 in Gloucester. We also reviewed the 2022 draft audit, which should be finalized shortly. We had a meeting with the Little Conestoga Working Lands Group. They discussed various grant funding applications that they have submitted in an attempt to get some monies for their project over off of Flory Mill. We had a meeting with West Hempfield Township, the admin finance group. We discussed the Stony Valley Road corridor. We discussed the resurfacing, agreed upon modifications of specifications so that they pay half, we pay half. That's a roadway that's split between the two of us. We also discussed possibilities concerning the Marietta Stony Battery intersection, as well as the Stony Battery and Main Street intersection. The Aher Park Phase 2 and the Aher Park wetlands creation is moving along. So we have two major projects happening at Aher Park. The Phase 2 project includes the pavilion, the added parking, and the two bocce courts. And the wetlands is to the west of the park, which would basically create a wetlands area and a meadows area with a trail around it. And that has a grant attached to it. And then I attended several other forums and webinars, conferences. Any questions?
A question on Noel Dorver. Have we established a final plan for what we're going to do there?
Yes, that was submitted with the grant.
Okay, that was submitted with the grant. Okay, good. And then if we decide to change the plan and don't spend the money, I would assume we would lose only the portion that we don't spend. Or do we lose it all if the plan doesn't go the way we design?
DCNR is very particular. Go ahead, Scott.
I agree. There'd be some minor adjustments. Obviously, you could make as construction changes maybe as you go along, but I'd say any wholesale changes they would be opposed to because you presented to them what you wanted to do, and that was the reason that they decided to give the funding to you.
Okay, thank you.
I may have missed it, but did you mention Church Street? I see here that, do we know what's going on with the schedule? Contractor wasn't going to accommodate the school schedule. Has that been hashed out yet, or?
I don't know that we've heard from PennDOT representative about that. Yes, she was going to try to work with them, but they haven't gotten back to us. We also haven't gotten their schedule yet.
Yeah, I saw that there. I just didn't know what that, if that meant that there's still some hope that that'll work out.
It probably won't. To be totally honest with you, it probably won't. The school is fully aware that it won't and is willing to work with PennDOT as best they can because they know that has to
Did
happen.
PennDOT specify night work?
No,
I'm just wondering, because that if there is a thought that they're going to be doing night work too, then we're going to have a whole different set of issues we're going to be dealing with. So,
I don't believe that included any night work.
okay.
No, and in fact, I think the times that were included were within busing times. There was significant discussion with the contractor during the pre-con meeting. And I think there will be work among the parties as much as there can be without the requirements that were missed in the contract. But
Did they have any lane restrictions? Like PennDOT typically puts lane restrictions from like 6 to 9, 3 to 6, where you cannot reduce a lane on construction projects.
I think the qualification in that was that they could not close the road during business hours. They could have lane restrictions, but not complete closure.
closing the road being closing a lane, or what would be
Closing the road completely. We have two different Church Street projects going on, and I may be confusing the two. The water main replacement that is slated to start anytime now in the next 4 to 6 weeks will have no complete roadway closures, just lane closures. The full resurfacing sidewalk and all of that will have full roadway. I think it's still just,
If you reach
will
out, if you reach out to our
Closures.
traffic engineer, you can have them pull the contract document, maintenance and protection.
we have it.
If you look under the maintenance and protection.
Yeah, I
it's
just can't come
very-
up with it
it's
off the
very
top of my head.
Specific about what they can and can't do. I mean, it might be a moot issue if they're not gonna do significant restrictions when school's letting out, which would be 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning. It's not gonna be an issue if they're paving midday.
I think there was discussion that the morning I don't think was a problem.
Right.
It was the afternoon run that was a problem because they would still be working.
And it's
Right.
staggered because of the 3 different levels of schools. There's multiple bus routes and multiple arrival times and multiple
Right.
egress, but I think that there was significant discussion during the pre-con meeting for the major project that they would stay within the school drop-off and pickup times as much as was possible for the significant closures that were occurring. I don't have my notes on that meeting with me.
Good.
But we're on it.
Okay, with that, we now appoint in our meeting for public comment, where residents or taxpayers of East Hempfield Township can come in and address the board. We have some, okay. Come up, you signed in, you're also, yeah, okay, over the microphone. Your
For the-
name and address.
My name is Bill Terry. I live at 2611 Marietta Avenue. Just wanted to take a few moments to thank the members of the board, my wife of 42 years, and I truly do appreciate the time and consideration given to the matter of ordinance 270-4.7. We are hopeful that with the changes made to the ordinance, no other family or residents of this township will have to live through what I and my family have during the last year because of the misinformation from township employees and or the inability to enforce current ordinances. This led to not only harassment from our neighbors, but tens of thousands of dollars spent in fencing, plants for screening, and lawyer fees. As a retired 21-year Navy veteran, I've been conditioned to follow rules and regulations. My question for this past year has been, when one ordinance is not followed, why do they have to follow any of them? Our hope is for all of East Hempfield Township residents to be treated equitably, whether they be retirees like my wife and I, or just starting out in their first homes, and to know that their township will be able to enforce the ordinance. Thank you.
Could you give a little bit more background about what the issue was and?
Sure.
Yeah, you got the floor for a moment, so.
Okay. Well, started out, we wanted to put up pavers along the borderline in order to stop the flow of debris coming from my neighbor's yard. I mean, it was significant, flooding down over to my house and heading down the front yard of twigs, pine needles, all kinds of stuff coming. So we just wanted to build a small barrier. I mean, we're talking just 2 inches high. We had Nate Sturgis came out, took a look at it and said, yes, you can put that right up against the border, right up against the property line if you want to do that. The secondary question on that same day was, we had put in some ornamental grass. My neighbor was complaining that the grass was going to scratch his RV and that we would have to pay for any paint that might have been chipped off. Nate said, not a problem. He can't even park it there. So we were elated at that point. Then it turned out, he told us, well, it can be parked there, but it has to be 10 feet away. That was a couple days later. Then after he went out and did a site visit with our neighbor, it turned out it actually was only going to have to be 5 feet away. With the 5-foot lot line setback, if he extends the size of his camper, which he does all the time when he gets back from somewhere, he's no longer at the 5-foot line. He is now 2 feet away. And it stays like that for almost a week. I've called on numerous occasions. I've been told that there have been site visits, but nothing has happened. At the time, we understood that there had to be screening put up, and his was a type 2, but now I'm understanding type 1 and 2s, that's no longer relevant. He put in a retaining wall, as it was now decided to be, which is actually, in my opinion, was an accessory wall with electric on it. Build it up 2 feet high in order to increase his parking at his house. I was told that that's okay. It's a retaining wall to hold back the earth, but everything was flat between us. Nothing was there until he built that up and created more parking. So we put in a fence. That was the most costly thing that we had to do. We put in additional landscaping to help with the water that's coming down the hill from above us, and the plants are absorbing most of that. We've also had to seek attorney to assist us with letters for a cease and desist against our neighbor. And I mean, it's just been an ongoing thing for the last year. In fact, year this month. 1 year this month. And now that type 1 and 2s are taken out of the ordinance, then I'm assuming it makes no difference. There used to be a 72-hour rule of parking there. That's now gone. He can now permanently park it there, as I've been told. And the ordinances at the time, after several discussions and numerous emails, I was told that the ordinances as they were written, it was a struggle to enforce them. So now I'm hoping that the way that they're written now, you can enforce what needs to be done.
And all you're asking us to do is to enforce the ordinance, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
but they have been changed, so enforce what you have put forth. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your experience. So,
Yeah,
We moved here 10 years ago and then I never had plans to attend any kind of board meetings like this, but here we are. I do have one other request, totally separate from that. I've also talked with the DOT about the speed limit on Marietta Avenue coming up past our house from Roorestown up to Running Pump. I know that sometimes the East Hempfield police are sitting in the church parking lot all the time. And after I spoke with the DOT, they said it was up to East Hempfield if you guys could put in some sort of a radar speed light just to tell people it's only 35. And we've got them doing 50, 55 coming up our street all the time.
all right, we have our staff's knowing that we actually moved that flasher board around. You got the chief of police here too. So
Okay.
that's actually something we do use as a tool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for that.
you bet. Any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none. I'll make one announcement. Apparently our October finance meeting, committee meeting, budget meeting will be held on Tuesday, October the 25th at 4:30 at the Township Building. For anyone who would like to attend. Anything else from the board tonight? Okay, well, thank you. Well, that said, I move for motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion for Mr. Russell and a second from Mr. LaFever to adjourn our meeting tonight. All those in favor? Aye. Have a nice evening, everyone.